Poker Stories is an audio series that features casual interviews with some of the game's best players and personalities. Each episode highlights a well-known figure in the poker world and dives deep into their favorite tales, both on and off the feld.
Hello, and welcome to Poker Stories, a podcast brought to you by Card Player, the Poker Authority, and hosted by me, Julio Rodriguez. This is episode number 52, which means we've officially made it through year 2 of the podcast. I wanted to take this opportunity to thank all of you regular listeners for your continued support. The show has grown every month and is not only among the most downloaded poker podcasts out there, but is actually starting to do well in the general gaming area as well. Again, if you haven't already done so, please subscribe. Poker Stories is available through pretty much every podcast app out there, and for those of you super fans who leave us a rating and review, we'll hook you up with a free digital subscription to Card Player magazine. Just let us know about it with an email to pokerstories@cardplayer.com. Today's episode features 28-year-old Ryan Laplante. Ryan is from Minnesota and was in high school when the poker boom hit, and ever since then, he's known that he wanted to be a professional poker player. He didn't have the easiest of starts, but Ryan was dedicated to playing poker no matter what it took. When his laptop died, he would actually walk 2 miles to his college campus and back just to play online poker in the computer lab, reinstalling and then deleting the program every time he used it. There were a few years dealing with variance, a tilt, and some backing troubles, but Ryan righted the ship and he started winning. He has 6 final table appearances at the WSOP so far, including a win in a massive PLO event for his first Bracelet. So far in his career, he's pocketed just under $2 million in live tournament earnings, to go along with another $2 million or so won online. Ryan is also a poker coach, taking on students at his website, pokerprotential.com, and at Chip Leader Coaching. Anyway, that's enough intro. Here's my conversation with Ryan Laplante. Ryan, how you doing?
Doing very well, thank you.
How's your year been? Poker-wise.
Poker-wise, it's been decent.
Yeah.
Could have been better in a lot of different ways. At my largest online score, $50,000, which in that tournament, I took 4th in a pot for chip lead, where I was 75% favorite for a massive, massive pot. And first place in that was $200K. And that's like that tournament kind of describes my year.
Yeah.
Like, I can't say it's been bad, but I can't say it's been great. And part of the issue is that, the year before, 2017 was insane. It was a ridiculous year for me. I had 4 final tables during the summer in Vegas, and I just had a monstrous year just in general.
I only ask just because I'm wondering how poker pros evaluate their year at the end of the year. Is it all just dollars and cents, or because so much of it is you just got to be happy with the decisions you made,
right, exactly. Generally, when people ask that question, they ask it in an emotional, financial standpoint.
Yeah.
And financially, it's been a fine year. It's almost been an incredible year. That kind of makes me go, well, it's been decent.
Could have been better.
Yeah, exactly. But in terms of in all the big situations that I've been in, I've been completely okay with every single spot. Very happy with how I got it in, how I played. I took 20-something in the 10K PLO. Lost a flip for top 2 chips, where first place is $1 million. And yeah, there's nothing I'd really change about any of that run. It's some of the most fun and some of the best poker I've ever played in my life. And, that's kind of how the summer's been, or how the year in general has been, is that I'm playing exceptionally well. I'm putting myself into a lot of big spots, and I'm getting some results. But variance does as variance does.
Is it frustrating, though, to look back and go, oh, if this card had just been differently, maybe that score would have been 6 times bigger or X or Y? Or...
my ego tells me that.
Yeah.
But, anytime you're playing poker, or anything in life, really, you have the selfish ego part of you that's like, you know what, I deserve this score, this result, I deserve to be successful. But you also, you have to make sure that you're constantly reminding yourself with your rational part of your brain is that, I don't really... there is no deserve in life. Things just happen or they don't. Kurt Vonnegut, one of my favorite authors, one of the saying of his that I love the most is "so it goes," which is things just happen. And it's up to you to decide how you react to those, whether you put those things in a positive light or a negative light. And there are lots of things in my life where if I look back at it, my ego will say, "Oh, that was awful," but the more rational part of my brain will go, "Hey, I learned a lot from that experience. I've grown a lot because of it, and I'm in a much better spot financially and emotionally because of it." Mm-hmm. So it's always about making sure you're putting things in the right kind of perspective. And the best perspective that I can put this year on is, it was a great year.
Yeah. So you had no emotion. Excuse me. You had no emotional outbursts at the table this year.
No.
No slamming of the cards. That's a sign that you've been in it for a while, right?
When I busted 2,500 final table at the World Series, took 6. It was first time on Poker Go for a couple seconds. It was literally the first hand. And, that was a big pot. Yeah, I got in bad in a cooler spot, but, that was worth a lot of money, and I shrugged it off. I got paid out, hopped in the next tournament immediately after.
I think that's when I see, because I've been doing this for a while, and I see poker players in year 1, 2, 3, and then the ones who get to your point,
right.
There's a noticeable switch with people when they get to a certain point in their career where the emotion's just gone from it.
Well, it's not that I'm not emotional. I care very deeply about every hand and every bust. It's just that I'm much better at just accepting that that's what happened. Mm-hmm. This is my emotional response to it. Feeling it, being okay with it, analyzing it, just growing through it, and then moving on.
Yeah, the moving on is the tough part for me.
A lot of people say that their goal, when they're working on their mental game, that a lot of people's goals is to, become a robot and not feel. Mm-hmm. But I think that that's equally as unhealthy as letting your emotions control you.
Interesting.
I think you need to be able to have those feelings and be okay with them and move through them. Mm-hmm. Not feeling, humans, we're emotional people. We're emotional creatures. We are supposed to, it's these emotional ties to things is what make us passionate about, family, about jobs, about whatever we're doing. And if you aren't emotional, it's very hard to stay passionate, to stay driven about something. I want to stay passionate and driven about poker, and about, other aspects of my life. And if I, try to quench those emotions and not just, feel them, mm-hmm. if I'm quenching them, then I'm just preventing myself from having that release, which is very unhealthy.
Yeah.
You need to be able to have that release, whether it's, frustration or anger or happiness or whatever, and, control them, to have them, feel them, be okay with them, analyze them and move through them and, grow because of it. If you're just quenching them, then you're bottling up what you're actually going through, and that's not healthy at all. So I think most people, when, it's not for most of the top pros,
never fights.
Right, exactly. Having that emotional release it's a good thing. It's a very good thing. It's a very, very healthy thing. So for me, it wasn't about trying to kill those emotions. It's more about just being okay with feeling them and dealing with them. Mm-hmm. And, I'm still very passionate, and I still love running deep in any tournament. I recently ran deep in a $400 buy-in that had 30K up top. I had a lot of fun. It was great. It was a big sweat. And, I was one of the chip leaders with 20 people left, and I took 18th. And I was frustrated. Of course I was frustrated. Yeah. In that spot, I should, final table almost always, and I should top 3 pretty high percentage, and I didn't. And, an unhealthy response is allowing your emotions to control you, and an unhealthy response is not feeling anything. My goal is to just allow myself to feel it and be okay with it.
Yeah.
And one of the easiest ways I've felt to not get too emotionally attached to all-ins and stuff is if it's a big enough all-in, I just won't watch it. I'll just shut my eyes at the table, I'll look away, I'll do whatever. And
that's right. I remember this conversation we had before in a past interview where you said that you would to control, you had a tilt issue.
Yeah. I used to be a really bad tilter.
Yeah.
Really bad.
Breaking a laptop?
I've
tilting?
Accidentally broke a laptop. I've broken multiple keyboards. I've broken mice and headsets, and, I'd cuss and scream and, bang the table. And
in the privacy of your own home.
In the privacy of my own home. Just my fiance would have to put up with it. And I just realized that if I didn't get my emotions under control, that I wouldn't be able to play this game for a living. I'd be too stressed out. Right. Cause too much just negativity in my life.
Online you used to tile, right?
Yeah, I used to style, then I started stacking them. Then I wouldn't even be able to watch all-ins because I'd have something else going on at the same time.
Right.
And for my deep runs, I'd pull them out of the stack. But if I was all in, I would just force myself to not watch it. And if you look at my shark scope graph, you can see the exact day in February of, I think it was 2012 or whatever, that I stopped tiling. Because the graph just goes straight up like $80,000 on like a 30 average buy-in.
So you were just like, I don't care about the outcome anymore. As soon as I make the decision, I'm clicking away, or the computer's clicking away for me.
In fact, there are actually programs you can run where I think they work with Stars and most of the other major sites where once you're all in, it stops showing the board. Oh. So you don't even get to watch it.
That's a real good way to disconnect from the outcome.
Yeah, it's a program that my backer and one of my best friends uses. He's one of the best heads-up Cinco players, and he doesn't even want the opportunity to look just because it's a distraction. He doesn't care about, like, he has no emotional attachment to the tournament or just because he's playing these heads-up Cincos, so one buy-in just doesn't matter at all to him. Yeah. But it's more about if he doesn't even allow his brain to have the opportunity to look, then he won't be distracted to any degree. But if he has the opportunity to look, then he has to go through the process of, no, I shouldn't look, I can't look, I've got to pay attention to this stuff. That's, more steps that he has to go through. From just focusing on the decisions that he has to make.
Yeah, it's interesting. What do you do live then?
I literally just don't look.
You just don't look?
Yeah, I just don't look. Like, when this summer I took like 20-something in, 10K PLO, and it was a flip for top 3. I just didn't watch.
Yeah.
Yeah. It helped a lot. Like, I saw the result. I busted. I got my payout, walked away from the table, hopped into the next tournament immediately after. Literally, I was in line buying into the next tournament within 3 minutes after having busted. Oof. And I, hopped into the early stages of, 1,500 or something like that.
And you didn't break any mice along the way?
No mice broken.
Let's go back to the beginning. Brainerd, Minnesota.
Yep.
Sounds like a very smart town.
Yeah, it's a
brain nerd.
Yeah, lots of Brainerd, lots of nerds there. Actually, no, not really. It's small town, central Minnesota. So total area population, maybe like 35,000 people. It's Brainerd, Baxter, plus the surrounding area.
Very small.
Yeah, pretty small town.
Everyone's in each other's business.
Not that small. 25,000 still a decent number. It's just, the closest cities to us that are bigger is an hour south or like 3 hours north. Like, we're one of the biggest cities in the area. Decent sized high school. In fact, speaking of small world, there's a streamer, poker pro, by the name of Justin Lapka, Lappy Poker, who I went to the same middle school as him.
Wow.
Went to the same high school. I knew him back in middle school, and now he's, a friend, fellow streamer.
Brainerd is a poker factory.
Yeah, apparently just the two of us. But yeah, it was a good area to grow up in.
You and your brother, right?
Yeah. Even though it was kind of a small town area, at least relative to Vegas and actual cities, it's still pretty liberal. Minnesota, for the most part, is still a fairly liberal state, even though there's still hunting and fishing and all the typical, stuff that people associate with small towns. It's still, it's a pretty good area to grow up in. You have an older brother. He's a year older. He's lives in Denver now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what was life like? I know you were a scout, right?
No, I was in Civil Air Patrol.
That's right. You were saying you weren't a scout.
Yeah.
You were in a special scouts.
Yeah. It's auxiliary of the Air Force for teenagers and adults. I highly suggest it for anyone. Learn about so it's auxiliary of the Air Force. So you learn a lot about flying and aviation. Learn a lot about military history, and you learn about military. They teach you how to march correctly. All the types of stuff that you'd learn at a boot camp type of stuff that you learn through Civil Air Patrol. But because it's a volunteer and civilian service, we don't really use guns or anything like that. Instead, it's all about search and rescue missions and training for first aid and doing we help with air shows. And
so that was your first career goal.
So at one point, I've always been a huge space nerd. At one point, I really had wanted to try to get into aviation to try to go that kind of route. But I have a bad left eye. Everything's kind of blurry. Doesn't matter if I wear glasses or not. It's kind of blurry. And because of that, I can't. I can fly normal planes and stuff, but I could never fly a jet or anything like that. Which kind of
or a space shuttle.
Yeah, or a space shuttle or anything like that. But yeah, Civil Air Patrol was a lot of fun. Taught me a lot about military discipline and self-control. Gave me a lot of leadership skills, which has always been very useful throughout my life. And I still really enjoy flying. Something takes a lot of time and money, which I don't really have that much time. But, eventually I would like to get back into it. It's so much fun. It's just a really freeing experience being up in a little two-seater plane.
You can,
by yourself.
timeshare a plane nowadays, can't you?
Yeah, it really isn't that expensive to, own and operate a plane, just because you can, share ownership and things like that. It's more expensive just to learn how to fly, because to learn how to fly, so if I'm remembering this correctly, it's just to get your solo license. It was 10 hours of classes, 10 hours of in-plane with the instructor, which you have to pay the instructor's hours, you have to pay the cost of the actual plane, then you have to pay for fuel. And fuel in an airplane, even a little Cessna, 172, which is what I soloed in, it's 50 plus an hour. At the minimum, it's 50 plus.
So you're paying the gas, the instructor fee.
Yeah, and the actual use of the plane. So it's $200 an hour just to get your solo license.
Well, let's find an instructor out there who owns his own plane, who's willing to trade you for poker lessons.
Well, I mean, my stepdad actually does own a plane and was an instructor. And I could actually get hours with him, but he's back up in Minnesota. And really, I just don't have the time. It's more just that. So just to get the solo, it's 20 hours of that stuff, and then to get your actual full license, I want to say it's 80 hours of flying time.
Yeah.
And then to get a commercial license, it's 500 plus hours and all these different tests and stuff that you have to do.
I hope I'm not in a plane another 500 hours in my life.
Yeah, it's a lot, which is why commercial pilots make so much. I mean, the average salary for a commercial pilot in the U.S. is $100,000, and it's because they spend $150,000 plus just to learn how to become a pilot.
Yeah. Well, it seems like it's worth it.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so you were a big gamer, though, right?
Yep. Oh, yeah. Growing up, I was a huge, huge, huge gamer. My mom, when I was a little kid, owned a video store. So when the Nintendo 64 came out, we got an advance copy of it. So we had N64 plus Mario 64 3 days before it was officially released. So I was able to beat it so we could set it up in front of the store.
You beat it in 3 days?
Yeah.
You beat Mario 64 in 3 days.
Completionist.
Okay, you didn't get all 120 stars. You got the 70 to get to Bowser.
But I've done the 120 plus multiple times. I was a huge gamer growing up. I was really into RPGs, RTS, first person shooter.
So you're 28 now?
Yeah. Yeah, as I aged, I got more and more into
so you were
stuff.
young when the N64 came out.
Yeah, I was 8 years old.
Oh my God, I'm thinking of this. Okay, you know what embarrassing? I got the N64 when it came out.
Yeah.
I had Mario, and I think it took me 9 months to beat that game. And I'm 34, so I was 14 years old or 13 years old.
We were very dedicated. It was myself, my brother, and some of our friends.
Yeah.
And my mom was like, "Hey, I want to have this set up in front of the store." So
did you have a Prima guide or whatever they're called?
No.
You know how long it took me just to figure out how to fly in that game? I had no. You had to look up and the light. I had no idea.
So we So as I aged, I got more and more into competitive side of gaming.
Yeah.
Really started with Yahoo Pool, and then SOCOM 2, U.S. Navy
play
SEALs.
Yahoo Pool too.
Yeah, and then Call of Duty 1, and then really the Halo series. When Halo 2 and Halo 3 is what I was really into the most. Halo 3 played it semi-competitively, and then Halo 3 was the last video game that I was actually into in the competitive type of scene. And then
but you were on a team.
Yeah, but we weren't MLG or anything like that, but we were trying to make it, and then they'd wanted to go to some competition. I couldn't go, and they took our backup teammate, and then they're like, "Hey, we did really well, and he can travel with us, and you can't." And I was like, "Okay, because I'm done with Halo." Yeah. Well, it's not that they kicked me out; they just kicked me to the backup, and I wasn't going to waste that amount of time and effort and be a backup player. So,
yeah, exactly.
And that was when I was 17, and during the moneymaker boom, that's when I got into poker with friends back in junior high school. We were playing. What we would do is we'd play $2 to $20 buy-in tournaments and play cash games, and then we'd also host Halo parties at different people's houses too. So it'd be about Halo and poker and football and whatever type of stuff. And so I was into poker since then and would watch every single World Series of Poker episode religiously. And, as a new year was about to come out, I'd rewatch every single episode leading up to that I could get my hands on.
You were a big poker fan.
Yeah, I was.
As a teenager.
I was a huge poker fan. Essentially from Moneymaker on, I've been a huge poker fan.
So you were just waiting your turn until you could turn 18 or 21 to go play?
Yeah, exactly. So I made my first my first real money online poker account the day I turned 18.
Yeah.
I found 2+2 forums about a month and a half before I turned 18, then spent the time leading up to it just learning and studying and trying to get better. And then when I turned 18, I started playing online and built up a couple bankrolls from free rolls, and then got my first backing deals and kind of never really looked back.
Yeah. Well, I remember there was some tough stories. I mean, you have your own grandpa stories about how you used to march 6 miles in the snow to go play online poker.
When I was in so I was in college for a year, and then the year after that, University of Minnesota Duluth, and the year after, so I dropped out at the end of the year, and the year after that I was still living pretty close to the school, and I had a laptop just blue screen of death on me, and I couldn't afford a new one. And I was working full-time at Subway trying to get the money together so I could have a real laptop again.
Yeah.
And in order to be able to play online during that stretch, I would walk about 2 miles each way just to use the college campus's computers to play online. And so I was working 40 hours a week, grinding 40-plus hours a week online, and then walking that distance each way the entire time. And then I had a day where I won a $7 turbo and $11 buy-in. There was probably for $5,000 between the two of them, and then bought a laptop, quit Subway, and just went into 100 hours a week grind mode to build up a bankroll.
Man, that's the montage of the movie.
Yeah.
You pick the right track.
Yeah.
And you just trudging back and forth to the library.
Hitting,
what did they think of this kid? Wasn't even a student coming in and just grinding online poker?
I still had my student password and stuff, and no one ever really said anything about it. You could just, I'd have to download PokerStars every single day that I got
that's
there.
Right.
I'd have to reinstall it every time. And obviously I was playing without a HUD, but I just really wanted to, to be actually playing full time. I couldn't, afford my own laptop, but I needed something that was reasonable enough to run the stuff. So I just had to, put up with it and power through. And then spent a couple of months still living in Duluth, and then I moved to Milwaukee to live with an uncle of mine and to be near an ex-boyfriend, and then was just grinding full-time there.
To be with a boyfriend?
Yeah, to be near. I was
you weren't
in Chicago.
You weren't chasing your ex-boyfriend.
No.
He's now your ex-boyfriend.
Yeah. And then, he and I broke up not that long afterwards, and then maybe a couple months after that, I met my fiance.
Yeah. But this whole time, you had already been out?
Yeah.
Okay.
I came out the first couple of weeks of college.
That's right. And you said you were part of a poker club?
Yeah. Some friends of mine that I'm still friends with today, we started a poker group, and every Sundays we would play. We'd do a 3-month plus long league, and yeah. A lot of those guys, I still hang out with occasionally, convince them to come down. After I won my bracelet that summer, I went up and, did a big get-together where I was wearing the bracelet, playing with them. Yeah. And, the year that I was in college, everyone knew how into poker that I was. And, I would just tell them that, that poker was what I wanted to do for a living, that I was going to be a pro poker player.
Yeah, so, you get to college... You're having the time of your life, obviously, because you could be yourself for the first time. You meet these people, and you have a common interest, and school just goes way back burner.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
you just knew you wanted to be a poker player.
I was going to one class a week. I was going to a public speaking class because I was always awful at public, very awful. I'd get so nervous. I would be scared. I, would just stumble over myself. So I went to a public speaking class and did really well in it and got kind of over my fear of public speaking, and I'm comfortable.
Well, you got something out of college, then.
Yeah, exactly. I got what I wanted to out of college, which was I met a lot of people, was able to be myself, and I got the tools and experience I needed to do what I do for a living.
So that's what college is about.
Talk
Talk about those early years. How after you dropped out, you're playing. Obviously, you graduated from Subway University,
Yeah.
and you're playing on your own, getting backers. What was the grind like? Did you have any second thoughts about it, doubts?
So the grind was like I didn't really start doing exceptionally consistently well until the month leading up to Black Friday, and that's just when like everything kind of fell apart.
Yeah, great timing.
Yeah, the month leading up to Black Friday, I had like a 30K month where I had 0 banks. I was just like crushing the games, and it was awful timing in the sense that 30K month just like barely cleared my makeup. So like I didn't really get anything out of it, but outside of the fact that I finally found games that I could grind consistently, I was getting better. And then when Black Friday hit, I didn't really know what was going to happen, what I was going to do. I had plans of going to the World Series that year, playing. I was 21. When I turned 21 May 11th, so a month after Black Friday happened. And I was going to go to my first World Series and just go play like the main and stuff. But, since it happened, I didn't know what I was going to do. So I spent a month just like moping about and listening to Quad Jack's radio every day and just, trying to figure out what I should do. And then a buddy of mine hit me up and was like, hey, I won't have like a spare room for you, but you can stay with me in a hotel room and, just get pull-out couch or whatever with some friends and I. And, you can come out super cheap. And I was like, guess I'm going to the World Series.
Yeah.
So instead of just going for the last week, I built a package and went for pretty much the whole stretch and had my first World Series poker final table. And I'm actually happy that it went the way that it did. I was 21. I was pretty emotional. Downswings and stuff really affected me. And, at 21 years old, I was chip leader 9-handed in a 1,500 that $500,000 for first place.
Yeah.
Which, if I win that, I go on my own. And, now I have that to deal with.
Yeah.
And instead, I took 8th. And at the time, obviously, I was devastated.
It was like 50K or something like that?
Yeah, for like, 50, 60 grand, something like that. When first is 500, that's a ridiculous difference, especially to a 21-year-old. And, I was pretty devastated and grinded the rest of the summer. Didn't really get any other true results, I don't think. But the thing is that I did well enough that I could use it to justify convincing, my at the time boyfriend, now fiance, that we should go to Canada so I can grind online full time.
Yeah.
And so we went to Toronto for 6 months. And the first 4 months of that was probably like the darkest time of my career. It was straight down swinging. And, I was putting a lot of pressure on myself to do well because...
Right, because you just convinced this guy to move with you and...
Right. To another country.
Assured him it was going to be great.
Right, exactly.
That's a recipe for disaster.
And on top of that, I'm getting backed, and I'm playing the highest stakes I've ever played, and I'm going through my worst downswing of all time.
Yeah.
And then, the first month I was, I don't think I was that tilty, but by like month 2 and 3, when I'm putting all this pressure on me to be successful, and all I'm doing is hemorrhaging money, that was really bad. Like I was, yelling over like, beats anytime I'd run deep in something or was in a big buy-in or, and it was definitely putting a strain on my relationship. And I knew that if I didn't get myself under control, that I just wouldn't be able to make it as a poker player and that I could, tank my relationship on top of that. And, that's when I was really getting into studying mindset and stuff. Tommy Angelo is definitely one of the people, his books and his blogs definitely had the biggest impact on me. Mm-hmm. And I stopped watching all-ins and started stacking tables. And I think over the next 5 weeks, I made like $90,000 on like a 30 average buy-in.
Yeah.
80 grand maybe. And, at the end of it, when I cleared, my backer at the time dropped me immediately. And I was like in Toronto, too broke to travel back to the U.S.
Whoa.
But I was, at the time, I'd been, some good friends of mine were backed by someone, and I told them that I needed backing, and they started backing me. And it was like halfway through the month that they started backing me, I ended up finishing really high up on monthly TLB, made like another 30 grand, and, went into that World Series and pretty high hopes, much more, mentally strong, having gone through what was definitely like one of the darkest times of my career, and had another final table at the World Series. Yeah. And it's kind of just been, not really looking back, there have definitely been time periods where, like there was a time period where I was just playing here in the U.S., backed by a USA facing staker playing on the small shady side sites, not really doing that well, just like surviving with coaching. But really, the last 3.5 years have been so incredible. Mostly because I started to get backing by Team 651, Jack Stack 99, Bubble Outcast. They're mostly a sit and go based staking group, spin and goes, heads up, that type of stuff, and they stake some tournament guys. And the way I got backed by them is I was coaching one of their tournament guys, and he went on like a 30K plus upswing, and then I started coaching another of their tournament guys, another 20K plus upswing, and then I started coaching another one of their guys, another big upswing. And I told them that I was interested in traveling outside of the U.S. again and playing online, and they picked me up, gave me a really good deal. And Jack Stack 99 he's one of the best poker players I've ever met. He's one of the nicest people I've ever met. He's an absolute sicko in every way, shape, and form.
Yeah.
And learning poker from him and having him mentor me and work my mental game has been why I've had the last 3 years have been successful as they are.
Well, I guess the 3-year stretch kind of started with the bracelet, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So
I started getting backed by them, I guess 7 months before that.
Mm-hmm.
And, well, obviously the bracelet was in PLO. I would definitely credit the bracelet to being picked up by them because, when you get, especially like Hold'em and Omaha, there's a lot of similarities in terms of the types of theory that goes into decision making. And the better you get at one, especially if you already have knowledge in the other, they kind of like bolster each other, and you get better and better together. Like as I've gotten better at PLO, my Hold'em game has honestly improved. A lot of my PLO game is a lot more based off of intuition and just general understanding of how poker works. And my Hold'em game is a lot more based off of, exact theory and mathematics. And as I get better at, the general intuition side of things, that bolsters the side of my game that really needs help in Hold'em. And as I get better at the more exact theory and fundamental understanding of what poker is and, how tournaments work, that helps my PLO game. And, over that stretch, I got significantly better understanding of just how to think about and approach situations. And that's what really gave me that type of summer. I mean, that summer was insane. Set a record for most cashes, which was then beaten at the end of summer. I was leading player of the year for like a week and a half. Mm-hmm. While Jason Mercier was utterly destroying, I was still ahead of him in player of the year. Mm-hmm. That's how well I was consistently doing. And then I won a bracelet on top of that. And
the $565 buy-in, pot limit Omaha, the PLOssus,
the
as
PLOssus
they call it.
Is the nickname.
How many people were in that monster?
2,192.
There you go.
Is that correct?
I don't know. I haven't clicked on it. I just assumed
like
you were right. Let's see. Not even close. You sold yourself short. 2,483.
Oh, jeez. God.
Man, that's 300 extra
that's
bodies
an extra 300
you got there.
people I crushed.
Yeah.
Wow. It wasn't even close. See, in the past, I would have thought that, like, if I, like, won a bracelet, I remember, like, all the little details about it. Nope.
It's all blurred together.
Too big time for that now. Yeah, a lot of it does just blend together for me now. Just because, like, a lot of these moments will definitely, like, stand out. I remember, like, the last hand. I remember, like, how it played out. I remember there's lots of stuff about it that I remember, but then there will be, like, little details that I'll misremember or forget just because there weren't things that mattered as much to me. Like, winning the bracelet mattered a lot more to me than the fact that at the time was the largest non-Hold'em field ever, or that, I won $190,000. It's just, I wanted that bracelet so badly.
Well, speaking of the bracelet, you mentioned that you took it to your buddies back in Minnesota, but where does the bracelet reside? Is
just
it like framed? Or?
Just at my house. Generally sits next to my bed.
You wear it every day? Or?
No, definitely not. The only time I've worn it twice. I wore it the day I received it, just because I'm not going to leave it in my backpack. I have to wear it the day I get it.
Yeah.
And then I wore it at the home game in Minnesota. I haven't worn it outside of that.
You're just not a fan of the color.
Well, I enjoy the color. It's more just that I just think it's kind of tacky, like, to wear. It doesn't really work that well as a piece of jewelry. It really is more of a trophy than it is.
I ask everyone who's got a bracelet on here. You get some different answers. A lot of people give them away, or some of
if
you
I
sit
win
in the drawer.
If I win a second one, I'd probably give that to my mom and dad.
All right, there you go. Let's see. Obviously, the win comes and you give the speech.
Right.
So,
Yeah. So
talk about that. I mean, because I talked to you right before you gave the speech,
Right.
and I was like, "Are you gonna say anything?"
Mhm.
And you were like, "Yeah, I have." You thought
Right.
about it.
Yeah. So the night that I won my bracelet, obviously, like, that was incredible. I think I want to say I won it around 7 p.m., something like that, which was just early enough where I could finish doing the interviews and stuff and then hop into the Millionaire Maker. Like, friends were like, hey, how are we partying and stuff? Where are we going? And I'm like, I've got 10 minutes to register the Millionaire Maker. That's what I'm doing.
We're
See
not
you guys.
partying. I'm on a hot streak.
Yeah, I'm on a hot streak. And I actually day 2'd and cashed that. And, so I play through the night, make day 2. And next morning when I wake up, outside of all, like, messages people are sending me, I just read that there was the largest mass shooting in U.S. history in a gay nightclub down in Orlando. And, that's devastating to me. Friends of mine own gay bars, and, like, to most people, a bar is just a bar. That's, where you go get drunk, maybe pick up chicks, whatever. But, for the gay community, the bar has been, like, one of the few places where it's actually a sanctuary of acceptance.
It's not just a place to drink and dance.
Right. No, it's a place to safely express who you are with people that will accept you and respect you for it.
Yeah.
It's not just about, there are bars where you can go and be tolerated. Like, that. The reason why, gay bars are still, I think, needed is that, if depending on who you are and stuff, if you go into a bar and act the way that you want to act and be who you want to be, at the dead minimum, you'll get looks. And, people these days might not be outright hostile. They also won't be entirely accepting, and you won't feel safe. And, so for the GLBT community, a gay bar is one of the few, especially for people who don't have an okay home life, who don't have their own places, it might be the one place where they can actually feel comfortable and safe.
Yeah.
And to have that destroyed, to have, the security that you would normally feel, at a place like that when, it's shot up and it's the worst mass shooting in U.S. history at the time, it's devastating. It was awful. It's terrible. And, as a poker player, you don't really do anything. You play cards, you make some money from people. You can say that we're entertainers, that, we provide, a service to people who want to gamble against us.
Right, but as far as social good goes,
you don't do that. No.
Yeah.
If anything, especially cash game, playing, like, if you see a recreational player dumping off stacks, you sit with them and you go after them. You encourage them to play higher stakes. You do whatever you can to get into that game to make it play as big as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Straddle, double straddle, triple straddle. You get that game to play massive, which is very predatory.
You're hunting.
Yeah, exactly. And I've always felt that, like, poker doesn't really do anything like that. However, what it does do is it puts you into the spotlight to some degree. Because it's been on television, they're streaming and all that kind of stuff, is that you become, I wouldn't say a celebrity, but, you get a little bit of spotlight. And I legitimately wasn't planning on writing a bracelet speech. I didn't even think about it. I was just going to go up, say, thank my fiance for supporting me.
This one's for Brainerd.
Yeah, that type of thing. Just say a couple words at most. Just because I think the people that ramble during bracelet speeches kind of cheapen the bracelet. Like, the bracelet should be able to speak for itself. And I still think it does. I think that, WSOP at times can, do some things that make it not feel as, prestigious. But for the most part, it's a wonderful accomplishment and it should speak for itself.
Yeah.
But, when the shooting occurred, I felt as though that I had an opportunity, maybe not necessarily to make a big impact, but if I could make one person listening to me feel a little bit safer and a little bit better, that would be worth, the time and effort. And so, yeah, I gave a speech, and it was definitely, hard for me to speak about what just happened, but it was definitely, I feel as though something that was necessary and warranted. So, I wasn't going to give a speech today, but June is Gay Pride Month in the United States, and last night at a gay dance club in Orlando, the largest shooting massacre in U.S. history occurred, in which over 50 people lost their lives, and even more were sent to the hospital. So, Even though I wasn't going to speak, I have 4 things I wanted to say. First, there's so many people that I am so deeply grateful to. Everyone who's been so supportful over the past few years, but especially my fiance, Chris. Yeah! I love him so much. Secondly, I'm so proud to call myself the World Series of Poker champion. Thirdly, I'm proud to call myself an openly gay man. And I encourage all of you to be proud of who you are and to be comfortable enough in yourself to be open with who you are with those around you if you so desire to do so. And finally, please treat each other with love and respect, as there's too much hate and ignorance in this world. Thank you all.
I remember talking to you about your thoughts on the poker community in general and how they've been pretty good about
Right, exactly.
being accepting of most people.
Right.
I mean, I can't imagine you've had too many horrible experiences.
I've had a handful, but, that's to be expected. It's just like, especially for playing live, you play against a very wide range of people. It's one of the reasons that I love playing live poker is that, I've played versus farmers and I've played versus Michael Phelps. I've played versus, Emmy-nominated actors and actresses, and I've played against, Joe Mechanic. It's, you name it, everyone loves and plays the game of poker, and it's such a diverse group. Yeah, it could be more diverse, and it should be more diverse. It should be a better representation of, the true population. But since the game requires barrier to entry, money, that, leaves out a lot of people. But that being said, it's such a wide range of people that have access to money, that are willing and love the game, that you play versus everyone. And by everyone, some people don't have the nicest, political views or, aren't really the most accepting or welcoming. I've had people call me, F-word at the table and, say very derogatory things, either directly at me or indirectly, just in general. Like
under the breath
or, or just talking about things that they don't really understand about how, like, I've got people saying that being gay is a choice or things like that, where it's just like, it's hard for me to, like, not say something.
That's got to be exhausting, though, to, like, be playing, trying to make money, and also educating at the same time.
Well, it's more, really the choice always comes down to is, do I want to turn this into a thing, or do I want to just, try to make a living? And
But I don't have to make that choice. You know what I mean?
I think everyone needs to make that choice at the table to a decent degree, just because, like, every day there's always some form of misogyny or bigotry or homophobia or whatever at the table. I mean, almost every day, especially misogyny. I mean, the amount of misogynistic comments I hear at the table are very, very high.
Yeah, we can do better with women, for sure.
Exactly. And, there always is the what's bad enough that you have to make that decision to point out and say, hey, you shouldn't say that. You shouldn't make those comments.
Yeah.
Especially the ones that are very borderline. Like, there's so many comments that men will make to women players or to women dealers where it's clear that they don't necessarily mean to be, misogynistic, but their tone and what they say is 100% misogynistic.
Right.
And
so do you want to pick a fight or not?
Right. It's do I want to be like the PC white knight and just say, hey, you shouldn't use that tone with her. You shouldn't say that to her. You wouldn't use that tone to, another guy at the table. And if you wouldn't say something like that to another guy at the table, why are you being demeaning to her? And, there is always that choice that we have to make. But I definitely feel as though in general that poker players tend to be a more accepting, a more giving, a more open-minded and respectful group of people, especially the pros. The pros these days, so many of us grew up as, like, online gaming nerds, and, especially growing up with the internet, just is going to make you a lot more progressive as a general rule of thumb. Access to information and education and those types of things is generally going to make you more open-minded. And then when you play poker with such a wide range of people that in general is going to make you more open-minded. So yeah, because of that, the poker players in general are a lot more accepting and are a lot more open.
And I imagine also when there is an asshole at the table, other people will speak up,
a little more often than a general population. I mean, that's one of the nice things about poker players is that we are a little more confrontational about things. And being confrontational, it can cause stressors. Like, do you really want to call out this especially like in a cash game, it's a lot harder to call out people because sometimes those people are the biggest losing players in the game, and that's like a weekly or daily game.
Right, but then there's the moral quandary of like, how much money does somebody need to have to give him license to be an idiot?
And especially if I'm playing a cash game, I feel as though it's not really my place to say anything unless I know the person who's being, like, generally it'll be a guy being very misogynistic to a woman. And then it just comes down to, do I know that woman? And do I, like, would she want me to say something? And it's hard to tell because sometimes those spots, the person would rather that guy just, that no one say anything, that guy stays in the game.
So she can stack him.
Yeah, so she can stack him. Yeah, exactly. And sometimes, she will want, someone to speak up and say something. And that's what makes it really hard is that I want to give them the opportunity to defend themselves and to, to do it themselves. And also I don't want to make them feel as though that they need my protection or help or anything, because that's very demeaning too.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it like very difficult in terms of there's a lot of gray areas that occurs at the poker table.
This is why we put sports on in the poker room.
Exactly. Like
put the TV on.
During the elections a few days ago, I was playing a live tournament, and the only thing that was on was sports. You know? Well, but I was watching MSNBC on my phone the entire time, railing the results and stuff, and sweating that really hard.
Yeah, we'll see how that all shakes out.
It'll be interesting, that's for sure. But that's also what makes poker great, is that it is such an all-consuming thing at times that if you need it to be there for you in terms of giving you something to think about, it's there for you. A good friend of mine who's a Vegas reg has cancer. And one of the ways that he stays, happy and focused is he plays poker all the time.
Yeah.
It gives him something else to do and think about that's not just, moping around at home, being sick. Instead, he can, just try to live as much as he can, and poker's what he loves.
Shout out to your buddy who's fighting out there.
Yeah.
We got to close out the podcast with some rapid-fire questions.
Yep, fire away.
If you're ready to go. Biggest pot you've ever won or lost?
Equity
or cash?
Cash, I've not really played that high stakes. The highest stakes cash game I played was 2-5-10 poker on the strip on Bellagio's stream, and that turned into 2-5-10 20-40-80 at one point, which turns it's a pretty big game.
2-5-10-40-80. So that's 5 blinds.
Yeah, 2-5-10 20-40-80.
Six blinds.
Yeah. That was a fun game. That was also my biggest
So the cutoff is the big blind?
Yeah, it got pretty fucked. And that was my biggest winning cash game session of all time, like plus 5K. So cash, not very big. For tournaments,
you just don't have the appetite for cash, you think?
I enjoy.
Or do you like the?
I enjoy good cash games. By good cash games, like give me 3 blinds and an ante. Yeah, I'm gonna battle. I love it. But the issue is that most of the cash games in Vegas, it's like 5-10, 1,500 cap. It's just a boring grind. Everyone's listening to headphones. 2-5-10 PLO though, is with the Rock. I enjoy that. And especially when that game gets aggressive. But when that's just like the normal game, if it's a normal-ish 2-5-10 game, it can be pretty grindy. It's just, to me, I play poker because I love it. And I enjoy cash games in small bursts, but unless it's a really good game, I'm not going to have that much fun in it.
Yeah. You want the thrill of winning something at the end.
Yeah, I want like the variance to be big enough and for the game to play wild enough that I'm constantly having to change and adjust and think about what's going on. But in a normal 5-10 cash game, it's just a grind.
Well, how much of it is just that there's a winner in a tournament, and
that
how much is like
too.
The competitive aspect? I mean, going back to your gaming days.
I mean, cash games can be hyper competitive as well, especially when they're that type of cash game where there's like a couple big spots in game and they're playing hyper aggressive. That's a really fun game. But I need like some competitive reason to really want to play. And with tournaments, hey, I can try to take first place money, and that's going to be a lot of money. In cash game, unless there's some aggressive dynamic behind the game, it doesn't feel like it's much of a competition.
Yeah. So what was the biggest equity pot?
Probably be my PLO flip this summer during the World Series, where if I win that flip, I'm either second or first in chips, and I would have been massive chip layer on my table. And having that amount of chips in a PLO tournament, especially in a PLO tournament where people know what they're doing, is insane, because the amount of pressure you can put on, that's how, like, at a PLO final table, the chip layer will have, like, 60% of the chips six ways.
That's why Jason builds all the big towers when he's playing.
Exactly. That's, like, because the ICM gets so brutal that the big stack just runs away with it.
You just put pressure like crazy.
So that was, like, a 200K plus.
And that was, what, 800, 900K up top?
A million.
A million,
like
so
1.1 million or something.
Wow.
Like that. Yeah, that was... Yeah, so that was huge.
That makes it even more impressive that you walked away and bought into an event right away.
Yeah, immediately after.
Yeah.
I legitimately wasn't tilted or frustrated or anything. I took a spot. It was a good spot to take. Guy almost folded an insanely strong hand to me. And then when he called with that insanely strong hand, I was still like 40% to win.
Yeah.
That's PLO.
You can't fault yourself there. What was the best swap or piece you've ever had of anybody?
Buddy of mine, I had a piece of Bellagio Fine Diamond last year.
Oh.
Got a swap. Yeah. Not a big piece.
Was that the other Ryan?
No, it wasn't that. I won't say who it is out of just privacy concerns. But yeah, that was my biggest.
It's nice
swap.
when people come through.
Yeah, it was very nice. It wasn't a big piece, but it was my biggest piece.
Mm-hmm. Best player we've never heard of. Somebody you want to shout out who doesn't get the credit they deserve.
Round IWN Poker, ROWN IWN Poker. He is just a very, very skilled player. He's not very well known. He works very hard in his game, puts in lots of online volume, is very GTO based, and has really good instincts.
Yeah.
His name's Mark.
Well, tell me a little bit about your online play. I saw you're on Twitch the other week for a while.
Yeah, I did 11 days of streaming, which was a lot of fun.
What was that about?
So ACR had given me a deal where if I sell action through them, they would essentially boost the markup that I would get as means for them to test something out. And because they were doing that, I had a reason to stream, and so I did it for 11 days. And because they were doing that, I decided to give 2% of whatever I cashed to Doctors Without Borders and have some people match it. So raised some money for a good cause, had a lot of fun streaming. And I do really enjoy streaming. It's just the issue for me is that it's all encompassing, is that when you stream, like at the start of the day, I'd wake up tired from how much effort I put into it the day before. Then at the end of the day, I would go to bed exhausted.
Yeah.
Like at the end of it, I was completely and totally
because
it's drained.
It already takes 100% of your mental energy just to play poker correctly.
Right.
And now you're like trying to produce a show.
Right. On top of like trying to teach people too, because like when I stream, for me, it's not about being entertaining. Like, I'm a poker player first. I'm not an entertainer first. And because I'm a poker player first, that means, like, I'm coaching throughout the entire thing.
Yeah.
And which means I'm nonstop talking about the decisions I'm making and why I'm making them and how it impacts, everything. And, that's just exhausting. So I had a lot of fun with it. But in order for me to really want to get into it, I would need that type of deal or better. And it's just not that realistic. It was insanely good.
Well, let's talk about your coaching. I mean, you have a website up where people can...
pokerpotential.com. I do lots of one-on-one coaching and stuff through that. I'm also a coach with Chip Leader Coaching, which is Chance Corneth, John B. Perez's coaching group.
We just had Chance on the podcast.
Awesome. Yep.
Yeah.
So you guys
He's telling me about that unique model they have over at CLC.
Yeah, it's a wonderful model. It's a great idea. They're really doing their best to try to build a community of dedicated players that are trying to help each other and grow through the game. So one of the best ways to learn is to have a group of people surrounding you who are trying to achieve the same task.
Yeah.
And who are willing to be open about it. And, we coaches, like when I coach for CLC and when I do my one-on-ones, I give away everything. Like I hold zero back.
Yeah.
And that's one of the biggest issues with like training sites in general, is a lot of the training sites, the coaches aren't that incentivized to give away everything. With like, when I was a Run It Once coach, like, there are certain things that I just wasn't that willing to discuss.
Right. Why go beyond the ABCs of winning?
Especially as, like, those training sites, they don't pay the coaches enough for it to be worth, giving away everything. You want the content to be good, definitely. But it can be good without you giving away, the keys to the house. And that's like one of the biggest issues with training sites in general.
So you have no more keys to your house?
Well, I've got a lot of keys.
They're all out there.
Yeah, no, not yet. Not yet. That is the key. And like Raise Your Edge does a really good job of giving away, pretty much everything because it's one coach. Upswing does a pretty good job of it too. With Nick Petrangelo's new training course, I've heard only wonderful things about it. That's supposed to be as good or better than Raise Your Edge. And the issue with those is that they're very expensive. Not that many people can really afford access to them.
Right. Who's the target market there? Like mid-stakes pros maybe looking to jump up or something.
Right. And, there definitely is room for something below that. And I will maybe talk about more in this in the future.
So you're hinting that there might be something in the works for you down the line.
And, one of the things with poker that I really enjoy is that it gives you so much flexibility to kind of work on what you want to work on.
Yeah.
So with tournaments, biggest downswing to them, the variance is insane. So the way that I curb that variance and the way I'm able to consistently make money, I do coaching.
Yeah.
I sell action, and I work on, like, side projects and stuff. And, I stay super, super, super busy just doing that. I mean,
what do you do with, like, a new student? Let's say somebody comes to you and they say, Ryan, I suck as a poker player. What's your first step?
Tell them to go work on their fundamentals and hit me up when they've got their fundamentals.
All right,
down.
I'm a fundamentally sound player and I'm still losing.
Then,
what do I do?
Well, most of the people who come to me shouldn't necessarily be losing players, but they're people that want to improve on their game.
Right.
And when they're at the point that they have like some solid fundamentals, I generally just do online hand history reviews. It's just the most efficient way to learn how someone plays. Because like if someone writes down hands and sends them to you, those are the hands that they know that they wanted work on.
Yeah.
Which isn't really.
They're being selective.
Yeah, they're being very selective.
Yeah.
They're being ridiculously selective because they don't want to send you the stuff that they know they fucked up. They want to send you the things that they're uncertain about to some degree. But the best hands for me.
Or show you a bad beat.
Yeah, exactly. And then on top of that, so occasionally I want to just show bad beats or whatever. But then on top of that, they won't remember all the relevant information. They won't remember, they might not remember who their opponent was exactly, won't remember how long they've been at the table, how many hands they've played together, what hands they've seen showdown, all that stuff. Which all that stuff matters a lot. Plus then the actual in-hand details of, stack depth and pot size and bet sizings and timings and all that stuff. Well, when you send me an online hand history, first of all, I get to see every single one, including the ones you didn't want me to see, but I also get to see the ones that you think you played perfectly.
Yeah.
And those are the ones that I can help you out the most with. Is you send me a hand that you think you made every decision perfect on, then I go, yeah, you screwed up here, 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 and here.
Right.
You do this.
Maybe you didn't win as much as you should. Maybe you didn't lose as little as you should.
Right, exactly. And
you could have played for stacks if you did this on the turn.
Right. And then on top of that, when the hand is in front of us, especially if it's a pretty recent hand, I can just be like, why did you make this decision?
Right.
Because, in a lot of people's eyes, you making the most money in the hand or losing the least, or you playing it for the right sizings, they think that that's correct and that's good. But that's not. It really isn't. You can play a hand street by street perfectly and still screw up because you did it for the wrong reasons. Doing everything in poker for the right reasons, that's how you become a very good player.
Interesting. Okay.
Most people, they're like, oh, what does GTO look like? I want to play GTO. I want to copy these top pros and do what they do. But
robot poker.
Yeah, exactly. If you're just parroting their decisions, then you're not going to be making the most money you can per opportunity because not everyone plays the same. Everyone plays differently. And the further away from GTO your opponents play, which most people play exceptionally far away from GTO, then the better decisions you have to make against them if you adjust.
Yeah.
Perfect example. Let's say you're playing, a $600 buy-in local tournament, and you've been at this table 4 hours with this guy, and he hasn't 3-bet once. Full CU, you open, they 3-bet, you have kings, so you 4-bet, they 5-bet jam, 150 big blinds. They have aces or kings. That's literally, they have aces or kings. GTO is like, I have kings, all in, never folding. Exactly. But by calling off there, you're hemorrhaging money. You're hemorrhaging.
Right. And if I had sent you that hand history, you'd be like, well, what are you going to do? You had kings. But if you'd seen the whole tournament and seen that guy never 3-bet, then you're going, what are you doing?
Yeah, why are you getting this in? But GTO is going to say, hey, yeah, you did well. You played it perfectly.
Or at the very least, flat call.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, obviously, like that, sometimes those spots are just coolers, but sometimes they really aren't. And that's the difference between parroting and doing what someone, just does as a general thumb versus actually understanding the decisions that go into the hand.
Right.
And I feel as though that a lot of the training sites are decent at saying this is a fundamental way that you should play and approach things.
Here's what you do with the flush draw on the turn when the pot is this size and you have X behind.
Yeah. Or these days it's more, this is what your range looks like, this is what their range looks like, this is how you should play your different parts of your range. That's it, that's cool, that's wonderful information. Knowing what GTO looks like is very, very important in terms of maximizing your profits.
Yeah.
But if you just copy it, you're making lots of mistakes.
Right. Because people are exploitable.
Exactly. Very exploitable.
All right. We talked about your worst job before poker. Was that Subway?
I actually didn't mind Subway at all.
Yeah.
Worst job before poker was a department store that I worked in. Awful.
What was so bad about that?
I'm just awful at I need true work to do. I can't just look busy.
God.
I need to be busy.
Do you watch the show Superstore on NBC?
No.
It's basically like a Kmart.
Yeah.
And it's employees, but it's done like office style or Parks and Rec style where it's the employees. And the only thing I think about watching it is what do they do all day? Like how do they not stare at the clock out of boredom,
Exactly. So part of that job was you're supposed to look busy, and I just can't look busy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so hated that. But Subway is actually fine because we generally had stuff to do all the time. Same with McDonald's. Honestly, for teenagers who need good, easy jobs, those are perfectly fine, and they teach you a lot.
The hours
teach you
fly
how
by.
to be reasonable, functioning members of society.
Yeah, because you have to deal with everybody.
Yeah, you have to deal with everybody. You have to learn how to hold your tongue, how
worst.
to listen to people,
Hungry.
how to which Civil Air Patrol taught me a lot of that stuff too, about how to follow orders and be a good member of a team. Even if you dislike doing something, doing it for the greater good of the rest of the team and just accomplishing tasks. That's what Subway and McDonald's and those types of jobs teach teenagers is they're wonderful tools to do that. And
what was the worst part about the department store?
Not being busy.
So you wouldn't even mind folding clothes?
No, if I had actual something to do, but they wanted it if it looked like I was standing still, it was awful.
Was it one of those where you had to wear a shirt and tie?
No, but I'd wear nice button up and that kind of stuff. Yeah. And I don't mind doing that stuff, but that's one of the other things I love about poker. If I want to dress like I don't care, I can dress like I don't care. If I want to dress fabulously, I can dress fabulously. If I want to down dress, up dress, if I want whatever. And I love that.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite aspects, definitely.
And you'll fit right in regardless of what you choose.
Right, exactly.
If not for poker, what would you be doing? Poker is illegal tomorrow. What do you do?
Move back to Minnesota. My family has a real estate investment company, so I'd be doing real estate.
Yeah, you just fall back there.
Yeah. And also growing up, I always wanted to be an entrepreneur. I always wanted to own my own business, and I technically have with poker through coaching, but now I actually have an LLC, which I'm very happy about and really excited for.
There you go. Favorite tournament destination?
That I've actually played at would be Seminole Hard Rock in South Florida.
2 weeks in a row we're getting this answer.
Yeah. It's just Tony does such a wonderful job there. There's such a wonderful series, great structures, great environment, great everything. That resort and the pools and everything there is just so nice. The food there is pretty good. It's a little expensive, but it's South Florida, big resorts to be expected.
And if you bust, you got the beach
outside
right there.
of that, in terms of my favorite all-around venue would be the Playground in Montreal.
Okay.
But the reason why I listed South Florida above that is in order to get to it, it's a 40-minute drive outside of the city.
Yeah.
And Uber won't pick you up from there. So you have to wait in this long line for taxis to get back. There's no hotels near that. It's just a very inconvenient place to play. But all around as a venue, it's the best round venue I've ever played at by a
there's a
good margin in terms of what they have to offer.
There's a few spots in the U.S. where you land and have to drive an hour.
Yeah.
Choctaw's like that. Colorado's almost like that because you have to cross Denver.
The best, in terms of well-ran for, cash games, tournaments, in terms of, the actual playing of poker, I think the Wynn does its does the job the best. I think Ryan Bugard is I think Ryan Bugard, who is a head director of the room there, I think he is, in terms of like actual knowledge of what the players want and actual knowledge of the industry, I think he is the most knowledgeable, and I don't even think it's remotely close.
Ryan was a dealer when I first started in poker back in the day, and then they sent him to Macau to run the room over there before he got brought back.
Yeah, I think he is just the best.
They also like how bright that room is, too.
Yeah, that room is a really nice room. But like the thing that Montreal, the reason why I'd rank them above is Montreal has wonderful food. They give insane comps. And then, of course, the tournaments there are so massive. They have so much room there that it's just insane.
Yeah.
Wins, the thing that holds them back is it's a small room. Yeah. But because it's a small room, they can do what they want in terms of catering to players, and they really do their best in terms of making sure that, like, they were one of the first rooms with full big blind ante for every tournament. They listen to players in terms of, like, 8 max or 9 max, adding high rollers, doing things like that. They're just a little bit limited due to the space that they have, but they are wonderful with what they have.
Yeah, I'm definitely a fan of that room for sure. Are there any poker rules that should be altered or eliminated?
Altered or eliminated?
Is there anything that's just bugging you out there about procedurally or seeing an angle over
there
and
are
over
a
again?
couple things that can stand out. One of the main things as a general rule of thumb is I dislike it when the rules are fully 100% copied step by step by step by step. As in, someone does this, they should immediately get a penalty.
Oh, preaching to the choir.
There are certain things that like when a pro does something and it's within the rules, he's angle shooting. Or there's certain things that a recreational player does that when they do it, they're literally never angle shooting or doing anything with regards of truly breaking the rules. They're breaking what the rules say without actually breaking the spirit of the rule. Like, the rules exist in poker to prevent people from taking advantage of situations. And if someone clearly isn't trying to take advantage of the situation, they just screwed up, I don't think they should get the full brunt of whatever that rule is.
Right. What is the intent of this rule?
Yeah, exactly.
That's what we're losing sight of.
Right. And
I always say our TDs are good, and they should be able to rule in gray areas with more freedom.
That's what I agree with as well. Something else is there was the way that late registration works at certain venues, like, that can also be a major issue. Anytime you late reg and you get the same table as someone in line in front or behind you, there are still a couple of big places that do that. My biggest issue with, like, the World Series right now is not allowing deal making. Deal making is a part of the industry. It's part of the game. It is. I think it's an important part of the game and industry. Yeah. I think it needs to be allowed. Just have some control over it. Like, I get that you don't want people to be able to deal away a bracelet. I agree with that. Don't deal away the bracelets. However, if people want to, play for all but 2% of the prize pool, and you leave 2% of the prize pool in the bracelet for first.
What's the EPT rules? Is it like 10% or 5%?
I think it's 2% of the total prize pool, or like.
Or what's left or something?
Yeah, or 10% of what's left or something like that. I don't remember the exact, but it leaves enough for first that, like, first place is supposed to be $200K. If it drops to you're playing for $30,000 in a bracelet extra on top of the deal making, that's like, you could just say I'm playing for a bracelet. I don't need the fucking money. And I'll play my ass off. And,
it's not tainted just because there was a deal made.
Exactly. That's one of my biggest issues with the World Series, because people still make deals, and it causes issues.
I mean, if there was a 9-way even chop and somebody got a bracelet, okay, I'm going to put an asterisk next to that guy's name, but that's never going to happen.
No, what's going to happen is they should have X amount set aside. You play for X amount on the bracelet, and you can't deal away the X amount.
Sounds like a good idea, WSOP. Are you listening?
Which Jack does a really good job at listening to most things. I think he, honestly, people don't really give him enough credit for the amount of stuff that he deals with and the way in which the World Series is ran.
No, it's a complete circus over there, and they make it look pretty good.
Yeah,
so.
And this is just like, this is literally the one issue I have with it. But to me, it's a very important and very large issue. Like, they added some big blind ante events. They're adding more. I know they'll keep adding more. I know big blind ante is just part of the industry.
Eventually, it's just going to be everything.
Yeah. And that's wonderful. But, yeah, I would say, like, no deal making allowed at the World Series is probably one of my biggest just current pet peeves. But, it's not something that's going to stop me from playing there. I just think that I think that the casinos, that it's very important that they protect the integrity of the game and the industry, and they protect the players as much as they reasonably can. This is one of the things that they can do.
And we've heard horror stories at the WSOP of people walking away with all the money after they made a deal.
Yeah.
All right. One more question, and then two more questions. Headphones on at the table, yes or no?
Both ears if someone's being really annoying. One ear if it's a pretty quiet table, people aren't really talking or relaxing, or if, if no one's really chatting up the table or really, I'm not going to try to force it. I don't mind just taking it easy and relaxing and having one earbud in. But if I'm running deep in something, I usually do none. Or like I'll have them like off my ears where I can still hear everything with light music. But sometimes if I'm feeling really nervous, I'll go both earbuds and just try to focus and try to ignore like my inner monologue of holy shit, I'm playing for a lot of money.
It's just situation dependent.
Yeah,
kinda.
Very situation.
What are you listening to, or is that also situation dependent?
Yeah, that can be situation dependent. I've got some like pump up music, but I've got like my liked songs on Spotify, so it's like probably 500 plus songs I just put on shuffle. And
is that how you use Spotify? You like something and then go to that?
And then I go to that for the most part. I'll put on like a radio and then go through the radio, like everything that I like, and then so if I feel I need more music.
Do like the radio feature of Spotify. Yeah. I've been finding a few new bands that way.
Yeah.
But I just do all my playlists of one band.
Oh, no, I do the big shuffle.
Yeah, the big shuffle. I got to get into that. Who's your group, though? Who's your person? Do you have
bands that I really... to, like, pump up?
No, I mean, do you just have, like, an iconic person you keep going back to, a singer or group?
Linkin Park and Breaking Benjamin are, like, two of my main go-tos.
Breaking Benjamin. Yeah. That was my college years, Breaking Benjamin. And Linkin Park, actually. I think I stopped after Meteora.
I've seen Breaking Benjamin in concert twice, and they were wonderful.
I like Breaking Benjamin. I'm going to go listen to them after this. Okay, we end the podcast the same way every time, with a question from the random question generator. You ready?
Okay, sure.
All right. When did you screw everything up, but no one ever found out it was you? This doesn't sound like you.
That's not me.
This doesn't sound like you. You're on no one?
Yeah.
What celebrity would you rate as a perfect 10?
In what way?
Yeah, that seems, looks? That's weird.
I mean, Hemsworth. Hemsworth, short hair, and Thor armor. Yeah, that'll do it.
That did it for me, too. Hemsworth, okay, with the eye patch?
No eye patch. Eye patch is getting a little weird.
Still both eyes?
Yeah, still both eyes.
You're not into pirates?
No, not pirate.
Oh, man. Okay, this one's better. What would you name your boat if you had one? Perfect question to ask somebody from Minnesota. All those lakes.
Have to come up with a good poker pun.
Ooh, it's so poker related. Okay, so
definitely poker related.
Water, the river. Okay,
yeah.
No, okay, floating on the river. No, okay, you're on the lake. That doesn't make any sense.
Backdoor flush.
Backdoor flush.
Yeah, there we go. That has a lot of levels to it. Yeah. I like that a lot.
Yeah,
that's a good one.
You have an onboard bathroom, so it works for two reasons. There you go. All right, Ryan, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. That was great.
Thank you very much for having me. I really do appreciate it. Fun as always.
That's the show. Thank you once again to Ryan for the stories. You can follow him on Twitter at PotentialMN. That's Protential with the Minnesota postal abbreviation tacked on the end. If you are interested in getting some lessons from Ryan, then check out his website, pokerprotential.com, or Chip Leader Coaching. Or just stay tuned for some upcoming announcements related to a project Ryan is currently working on. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, leave a rating, leave a review, be nice, you know the drill, and make sure you come back in 2 weeks for another brand new episode of the podcast. Year 2 over, Year 3 begins soon. Thanks for listening.